Vegas. We're available around the world on kdwn.com/streamer/ and a video version is on YouTube. If you go to YouTube channel and Fired Up with Bob, you will discover you can watch the show as we produce it, as it goes on the radio. They're slightly off sync for time, so you have to watch one or the other. There's a delay time difference between the two media. But tonight, we're going to run a little bit longer on YouTube. We've got more show than I've got time to put in. So we are going to be running over 15 minutes or so on YouTube. So if you are watching on your electronic device, your mobile phone or your iPad or your computer at home, you'll get the whole thing. If you're listening on the radio, you're going to miss a little bit of the end. So when we hit 7 o'clock, you might want to flip on your electronic whatever and come see us finish up the show. We do encourage questions and comments as we talk about the gun issues. Because of the time differential between the two, they need to be sent in by email to bob@firedupmail.com, the little sign right here, so I don't have to say it every 10 minutes. Generally, what we do is we answer questions that are appropriate for a show with everybody listening on the air. We got a couple of those tonight. And all of your texts or emails will be answered by one of our attorneys if it's an attorney type question, or by me or somebody expert, or Tony D, our gunsmith, so forth. So if you have a question or comment about your guns or self-defense issues, send them in to that firedupwithbob.com, or I'm sorry, wrong again, bob@firedupmail.com. It's right there, but I can't see it. It's on the other side of the card for me. So you have to read that yourself.
He's trying to call you.
He's trying to call me?
Yeah, radio guy. Oh. Saying Bob. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Speak.
Hello.
Hey, this is Kate on Master Control. You're coming in very, very quiet. Like I can't even broadcast you. Is how quiet you're coming in.
Hang on, we're playing technical difficulty here, guys. So we got to turn up our volume.
On YouTube following us, the radio station can't hear us at the moment, so we're trying to get the volume raised up so they can too. If you're on the radio, hang with us. We'll be with you shortly.
Maybe you can hear what we say.
Ask him how it is now.
Yeah.
We're just playing promos right now.
Ask him how it is.
More volume out of you guys. I can't.
Okay, he's
just playing promos right
Ask him how much.
how's the volume right now? We just raised it up.
Can you get any more volume out of it?
Not without getting feedback.
Can you give me a call back on this line? Maybe that'll help.
Give you
Okay.
Okay, so restart the call.
Restart the call, please.
All right.
Okay.
Go back to 0. I guess you got to dial in. We got to redo the box.
Don't go away, those of you on YouTube. You're getting an education here in...
Oh, that sounds great.
Okay, we're good now?
Wait. Check the mic, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
That sounds much better.
Okay, it's
Okay,
because
good.
the box.
The box. Okay, we hit the box. So now you understand what's going on. Welcome back to Fired Up with Bob.
we're playing the middle promo. I'm gonna give you some music and we're gonna come back, okay?
All righty.
All right.
I need to start over, probably. Okay.
Well-
We'll be back in 20 seconds.
All right. Thanks, Clyde.
So everybody on YouTube got an education on what it takes to run a simulcast show on the computer and on the radio.
And we will be starting over with the radio broadcast
Shortly.
in about 15 seconds. Wow. How far are we in? We're in 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
All right.
It's gonna
Well, we
shorten
are going to
things
run
up.
over
We're going to run
tonight.
over today. Really over today.
And I
So
was supposed to be somewhere out of here at 7 on the button.
anybody with on YouTube is going to get a special today because we have too many stories for 40 minutes.
Are we, Clyde, are we there? Nope. Don't hear music.
I don't hear anything.
He was running something else, a promo in between to fill the airtime, so.
Sounds like we lost our connection there. He's coming back.
There's Bob.
That's actually how he sounds when he
No, I
answers
did
the
not
phone
hear
for a
anything.
regular day.
Okay, yeah, we're waiting for you. I didn't hear the music, but we'll just start right now. How's that? Okay. All right, sir.
So now we're going to call back into the radio station.
I don't know if he's got us or not.
And find out if we're on radio. If we are on radio, we apologize for any confusion. We're doing our best to get up and running with the show today. Doesn't sound like it's dialing out.
Are we on
Now it's going to die. Technology.
The number you have dialed is not in.
Amazingly enough, the radio station is now out of service on the phone.
Wow, this is great.
KDWN.
Hello, Clyde. Are we on, or can you hear us at all now?
Hey, Bob, I can hear you now. Let me do a quick check. Why don't you just start counting up for me right now, and I'll get right back to you to tell you if I can.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Start
5.
counting up, all right?
All right.
Go ahead, start it.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I hope the listeners are getting an education out of this. I certainly am.
Did you stop counting?
Yes, sir, I did.
No, I keep counting.
Oh,
Keep
1,
counting.
2,
I'll
3,
wait till I
4,
say not to, okay?
5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3,
Hey, Bob?
4. Yes.
Okay, it's a technical glitch on our side. I got to call the IT guy and have him reset something. Stand by.
Okay, well, we'll continue with the show, and you just pick it up when you can come on, all right? Because we're
Sounds good. You
we're
got,
live
can I
on
have a number
YouTube.
for you?
Pardon me?
Like, can I have a phone number to call you when I'm done?
We can't just leave the line open and have you click in when
No,
you're done?
because I've got to turn off the whole phone system to reset this.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is this the straight line?
yeah. This is the 333-0033. 702-333-0033.
Okay, that's 702-333-0033. I'll give you guys
Yeah,
a call.
and that'll
back.
be the line we'll be talking on.
Reset it.
All right.
So on YouTube today, you're going to get a special because you're getting something the radio is not getting.
This is great. Anyway, welcome to Fired Up again for the third or fourth time. We always have an attorney on board to answer legal questions. Tonight it is my right-hand man, or in this case, my left-hand man, defense attorney Michael Giles. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thanks for having me back, Bob.
We're going to start as we normally do with questions from listeners. We had a couple of them come in that the first one is a very common question we get on the counter all the time. Will my homeowner's insurance policy cover me if I shoot an intruder or a hostile intruder or the wrong intruder who's not an intruder? If you use your firearm to defend your house and you're sued by whoever it is, good guy or bad guy, homeowners covers you for liability, right?
Well, yeah, homeowners insurance policy. Here's the sad part about the question. The answer is maybe, which is a pretty common legal answer. Here's the issue. Insurance is designed to protect against negligent acts or unintentional acts. A lot of insurance companies will tell you shooting somebody, even intentionally to defend your life or the life of your family, isn't a negligent act. It's not an unintentional act. It's an intentional, and therefore they won't cover it. really what you need to do is contact your homeowner's liability company, your agent, and ask the following questions. If I'm in my home and I shoot an intruder in lawful self-defense, will you pay for my civil defense? They'll never pay for criminal defense charges if you're charged criminally. But if you're sued, they may cover the cost of defending you. If they cover the cost of defending you, the second question is, will you pay any judgment up to the policy limit of my policy? Because it is possible for an insurance company to defend you, but not be on the hook for damages if you lose. It's called a reservation of their right to deny coverage. If your company says yes to those two things, I would probably ask a third question, because homeowners insurance policy sometimes will cover acts outside of the home. Ask if they would cover those acts outside of the home. Probably the answer there is going to be no. It also depends on state law. Here in Nevada, we actually have a case that resulted in a decision that maybe is the right answer. I know some of the major companies will cover, some will not. Talk to your agent. If you're concerned about it and you don't get a good answer from your homeowner's policy agent, I would advise that you buy. There's a lot of insurance out there these days for people who carry firearms concealed. The United States Concealed Carry Association. Bob's going to take this phone call real quick because it's from the radio station most likely, and then we'll continue.
Hello, Clyde.
Hey, go ahead and count up from me, and don't stop until I tell you. I'm going to test it again, make sure we've got you.
All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
Bob?
Yes.
We've got an issue here where it's working, but it's only working if you're loud enough. And right now, your show is not loud enough to be broadcast over the air. So, if you...
Can we get you to do us a favor and announce that somehow and tell them that if they go to YouTube, they can catch the show?
Sure. And then what do you want me to do? I can run a rerun of the
Try it now. I
show,
just took it up
or-
as high as I can.
We just took the volume up. Is this any better now that we
It's
have?
still very, very faint, Bob. It's not going to fly on this system right now.
Okay, well, if you would tell them we are on YouTube, Fired Up with Bob Irwin, on their electronic devices, and we'll hopefully be back next week.
Okay. Any chance of you getting the ISDN line anytime soon?
We're still live on YouTube at the moment, and I really need to talk to you about the technical stuff off the air without the people listening from all over the country.
I get that. Okay, Bob.
Okay, I'll call you later.
Call me back.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, well, if you all heard that, we are on YouTube only tonight. There are some technical issues that aren't working. Anyway, Mike was talking about the homeowner's insurance covering your liability if you use your gun in self-defense.
Right.
And I've run into that several times. Insurance companies, look out. We have several of them through the NRA, the United Concealed Carry Association.
Right. There's
That
several out there.
Will sell you specific policies. Some are listed on our website, firedupwithbob.com, firedupwithbob.com. Michael and I both use the main one, really, I think.
It's the biggest one out there is USCCA. Doesn't make it the best necessarily. Consider all the plans yourself, but it is a large national organization. They have a good network of attorneys that you can contact and talk to that have agreed to work with their membership. Protect yourself, because in the end, when it comes right down to it, peace of mind will help you not worry as much if you get into one of these situations. We talk about it all the time, and I know Bob teaches this. What happens after the shooting can be every bit as traumatic as what happened before and during the shooting.
And certainly longer lasting.
And longer lasting, that's true.
The second question came in today, actually. A customer here, and he called and asked about this, is being bothered by a drone that's flying over his property, apparently with a camera on it and looking through windows, him and a couple of other houses, asking if he can shoot it. I know that's pretty much a no-no wherever you are. Here we're talking about locally in Southern Nevada. The rules are different everywhere. He asked the officer that responded if he could shoot it with a paintball gun, where there's no discharging a firearm in the air and that sort of thing, and it would probably disable the dang thing. The police officer thought that was probably okay, but there's no law against it that he knew of in our jurisdiction. And I would assume a good smack from a paintball gun would knock most drones to the ground.
You would think so. They're not particularly stable. This is a kind of a complex question. It's almost a law review type thing, or a test question, because it has a lot of different components to it. First of all, the individual flying the drone into the backyard looking through the windows is probably breaking some kind of an ordinance. The problem here is catching that individual. Where are they at, and how do you prove they knew they were over it? It's my understanding from this caller, this has happened several times.
Yeah, to him and his neighbor.
Right. So it's not a one-time thing where they're like, oh, what do I do the next time it comes back? They've had issues with it. First, contact local authorities, obviously. Make a report. You want to have something showing that you tried to follow and do all of that. Ultimately, you own the area above your property to a reasonable height, and you have a right to an expectation of privacy in your own home. So somebody flying a drone in there with a camera would be violating that. You could knock it down. A paintball gun might do it. A well-thrown football might do it. A long pole with a net on the end of it, if it's not a much more than a two-story house. Any of these things could bring the drone down. Now, the individual flying the drone could then call the police and say you've damaged their personal property, but they'd have to admit what they were doing there.
And they were on your property intruding.
Right. I was looking in their windows and they knocked my drone down, officer. I want them arrested for destroying my property. They could always sue you. I doubt immensely that law enforcement would take what they're saying about they damaged my property to a criminal standard. But if you broke their property, refused to return their property, if they came and said, hey, that's mine, I want it back, then they could sue you. That's probably a winner all day long in front of a jury. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
With the civil jury, they're going to say, oh, we're going to give the guy damages for being a peeping Tom, a technical peeping Tom. So, but
probably aren't good job. But don't use lethal force.
Yeah.
Anything you're going to fire at it that's going to go beyond the drone itself, crossbow, bolt that comes down, gunshots, obviously. We've got a story tonight about a gunshot gone awry. You've still got background, what goes up comes down. So firing a gun at a drone would violate most ordinances everywhere for firing a gun in the air rather than where you're supposed to be shooting. Wouldn't recommend that. But a paintball gun, the weed catcher for your pool,
sure,
that gets the leaves out, the long pole with a net on the end,
stretch it out.
something like that might work. Throw a net over it, throw a tennis ball at it, not a rock. That'll come down off your property and so forth. But there's some ways to get at it, but you can't shoot it out of the sky. I'm sure in almost every jurisdiction, there's some legal problem there.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, if you're out in the middle of nowhere on a ranch and they're flying it onto your ranch or something, you're probably not going to be, but that would be the rarest of exceptions. Everybody in a town is going to have a discharging firearms ordinance.
Correct. Okay. This is a defense story again. We're getting into those now. This is from theadvocate.com. They said in New Orleans on the 7th this month, a local man was shot by his girlfriend after he strangled and beat her inside her apartment in the early morning hours of July 4th. Jefferson Parish said in their reports that a 31-year-old man had been dating the victim for 10 months. He was involved in a physical altercation in the apartment on their Lac du Bay Drive at 3:30 a.m. on Saturday. This would be the early morning hours of July 4th. Police report says he brutally and physically abused the woman by choking and strangling her, repeatedly struck her in the face and in the body. The woman then went and got her gun and shot the attacker. The 31-year-old attacker suffered a non-life-threatening wound, wait for it, to the groin, and was taken to the hospital. The woman called police and told them she had shot her boyfriend. I shot him. I couldn't get him off me. The woman said she was taking the sheriff's office detective bureau where she gave a recorded statement and so forth, which is normal. The abuser was booked on account of domestic abuse battery by strangulation after being released from LSU Hospital in New Orleans. He's being held in the Jefferson Parish Correctional Center. No charges are being considered against the woman. Obviously, if she's being beaten and strangled, you can shoot guys who are doing that to you. The first question came to mind, was she a really good shot, or was it just lucky that she hit him where she did? And we can't answer that. We'll just decide what her answer may be. The problem is if she didn't have a gun, this is one of my have a gun in your house lectures, she'd not be able to get her gun. She'd probably be dead. And obviously you can't carry your gun around the house all the time, but if you know somebody's coming over who might be a problem, don't let him in. If you can help it, he broke in. Have the gun ready somewhere on your body so you can get at it rather than having to pull away from being choked to death. She's lucky to be alive. If she didn't have a gun, she no doubt wouldn't be alive.
Or very nearby. This is a classic example of a middle of the night thing. She probably was asleep when he came over and broke in. She heard the noise, had to go find the firearm, having it close enough to get to, far enough away that you don't bump it in the night, obviously, but close enough to get to it is an important thing, because that's one of the things we fight about with the statutes that require unlocked or locked away. If
Right.
she'd had to open a safe and load a firearm, she'd be dead. This probably would not have resulted the way it did.
Very likely. So, for those of you who don't want to have a gun in your home because you don't like guns and you're afraid that you're going to shoot yourself, if you've got kids or something that can't be trusted or people that can't be trusted in the house, there you are. But if it's possible to safely store a gun, you need to do that. These home invasions and whatnot, this was a domestic in a particular house, but we're getting a lot of home invasions where they hit houses at random because they think you have money and you need to be able to defend yourself. This story is one of my, every week I do a Texas story just because
There's always a Texas story.
so much fun shooting people. Texas is a little bit looser on when you can fire, a lot looser in most cases. They let you shoot in defensive property in Texas, where you can't anywhere else in the country, I don't believe. But anyway, this is from KHU.com in Houston. I pull this one because it comes close to my heart. A gun shop owner shot an alleged burglar at his Northside business early Tuesday. Houston police said the break-ins reported at 1:45 a.m. at Class 3 Weapons, the name of his shop, in the 6200 block of North Shepherd. The store had recently been targeted several times for break-ins, prompting the 52-year-old store owner to sleep at his business. He heard noises in his shop, so he armed himself, went to see what the commotion was about, and came face to face with multiple intruders, and he opened fire, striking one of the suspects. Arriving officers found a 23-year-old suspect with a gunshot wound to the head. The other two fled the scene. The wounded suspect was taken to the hospital and critical, but the police at the scene later indicated to reporters that the young fellow had died. Police said a detailed description of the burglars who got away was not yet available. Gun shop owner shoots burglars. I couldn't pass up this story. There's nothing particularly significant about it. For self-defense, obviously, you could do that. Breaking into gun shops is generally a really bad idea, especially rural ones. They tend to have the owner sleeping in there and so on. All the neighbors come and shoot you when you do that. As it said, he had a lot of break-ins or attempt break-ins several times in the last year. So he slept in the store, and now a young man is dead. Shouldn't do that. The risk if you become a burglar is you're going to get shot, right? Burglars understand that. This is from Baton Rouge on the 29th of June. WAFB TV report. A victim shot and killed a would-be armed robber early Monday morning. Deputies with the East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office, Parish Sheriff's Office, said the local 22-year-old walked up to a man around 1:30 in the morning. The guy was out for a walk and asked for a lighter. The man reached into his pocket. The would-be robber then pointed a gun at his victim and demanded all his possessions. That's when the victim pulled his gun out of his pocket rather than a lighter and fired at the criminal. The robber was later pronounced dead at the scene. Detectives believe the attempted robber was in a stolen vehicle, which was found at the scene. He is suspected of being involved in other crimes, and they're currently under investigation. They said the victim appeared justified in the shooting and will not be charged with a crime. Particularly in where we are in the areas of the country, everybody takes their walks at night because it's 195 here on occasion. The Chamber of Commerce will argue with that, but it seems like it. Actually, it's better this week.
It was only 102 today at my house.
Which is known as a cooling trend in Las Vegas. Anyway, it's kind of nice now, but a lot of us do our dog walking and are walking for exercise at night. Many people that I know carry guns when they do that because we do have a lot of street robberies. The reason I wanted to bring this up, this guy was able to get his gun out and fire it. If you're carrying your gun to be readily accessible for an attack like this, you need one to be able to fire it with one hand. Get it from wherever you're carrying it with one hand and fire it. The reason is in most of these attacks, this one it didn't say, but in most of these attacks, you only got one hand because your other is busy pushing the guy back or deflecting a weapon that's coming in or some deflecting his fist, getting his hand off your neck, whatever it may be. You've only really got one hand in most self-defense situations that are taking place at these distances. So carrying your gun in a way you can draw it with one hand, carrying it safely where you can draw it with one hand. Have you ever practiced doing that? And getting the gun from underneath the clothing that you'll be wearing. In the wintertime, you're wearing a lot of stuff. You need to dress when you go to practice. One, you need to unload your gun and make sure 2 or 3 times that it's unloaded. Go through the whole process twice to make sure there's not a round in it, so you don't pull the trigger in your house or shoot somebody you don't intend to when you're showing off. Practice, check empty gun. Dress the way you will be dressed when you're going out for your walk. If it's summertime and you're wearing shorts and a t-shirt and nothing else, and you're carrying a fanny pack or ankle holster, a gun in your sock or whatever, practice with your empty gun, drawing it from the way you're going to be carrying it, the way you're planning to walk. And do that. Practice getting the gun out and getting a round off, a dummy round, or clicking the gun to make sure you can go through the whole process several times before you actually carry a loaded gun in that position, so you know that you can get it out of your pocket, purse, fanny pack, whatever it is. I've seen people over and over in my career that had a fanny pack commonly, and they show me how they can draw out of it because they unzip it with one hand and they get the gun with the other hand, and then they discover that somebody's got a hold of their arm trying to pull their watch and ring off, or twisting their fingers for pain to get them to comply. They only have one hand, and when they pull the zipper on the fanny pack, it goes sideways, the whole thing, instead of opening. They needed 2 hands to get their gun out. And they always use 2 hands. It never occurred to them in real life they may only have one hand. So practice one-handed. If you have 2 to get the thing out, great. Be able to do it with 1, you'll be better off, and hopefully be able to save your own life like this guy did.
There's an adage we used to use when teaching, every day, same place, same way. The other danger of moving the firearm around, let's say in the summertime you carry it one way, in the wintertime you carry it a different way, is whatever you trained with last might be what you do. I'm aware here locally of at least one police officer who unfortunately lost his life because he had transitioned from a right side carry to a left side carry, and then when he needed the firearm, he was reaching for his right side because he hadn't trained enough with the left hand. That 25 years ago, and it was the first time a lot of us in law enforcement, at that time I was a deputy sheriff, we were kind of woken up to the fact that You won't just immediately find where the firearm is. So training is the lifeline. The firearm is the first important thing, but you got to train with it.
Yeah, we've had, actually, there's been examples of that in the paper recently, several of them, that same effect where you have guys carrying tasers, and they move their gun because they've got the taser, and then they drew their gun thinking in the heat of the fight that they were drawing their taser, and actually fired at somebody when they thought they were drawing their taser. Big case in Oakland.
Yeah, that's right.
Where the officer did that and went into riots and everything. But what happened, and you could tell by looking at the video, because the officer that jumped on the guy's back drew his gun, and then he pulled it back before he fired it from this position. Because we're not on radio at all. You can tell what I'm doing. Where he's in this position, he thought he pulled his taser, and he instead pulled his Glock. There's no reason in the world why you would pull the gun back if you're going to shoot somebody you're trying to shoot them. You do that with a taser to get the darts to spread out further, which increases the effectiveness of the taser. So you don't want to fire tasers point blank. You want to fire them, if you can, from 3 to 4 feet, because the farther apart the two darts hit the guy, the larger the jolt is and so forth. It's more effective. He backed his hand off and then heard a loud bang, louder than his taser makes. They make a bang too. But that's what caused that. There's some training issues there, and obviously and so forth. But when we were looking at that case, one of the instructors I had in the class at the time was an expert witness on that particular case. And when he showed it it was an instructor's class that same week as it happened. And when the instructor showed the videotape that wasn't public, but to watch the officer's hand, and all of us who were firearms instructors know exactly what happened immediately. He thought it was his taser. That's what you do with tasers. Anyway, practice the way you're going to carry the gun in the same place you're going to carry the gun with the same gun. And don't change guns every week because Guns and Ammo magazine says this is a better one this week, and run out and buy a different gun with a safety in a different place and whatever, because it won't work for you unless you practice it over and over again. The gun store, we do offer free concealed carry permit classes every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. You can find our classes at our website, www.thegunstorelasvegas.com. You can sign up online. I'm happy to report we have a terrible website right now. We're in transition between web companies, and they tell me that mid next week, our new website will suddenly appear. It's got incredible graphics and all sorts of stuff. You're going to love it. Right now, it's just a thing where you can click 3 things. But the new one is coming. It'll be gorgeous.
And because you're watching this on YouTube, you may not be in Nevada, you may not be in Las Vegas close to the gun store,
that's true too.
We have non-resident carry permits. Plan a vacation to Las Vegas, come to the gun store, shoot some machine guns, take the class while you're here, and submit your application while you're here. The Metropolitan Police Department will process it and mail you your non-resident permit, so the next time you come back to Las Vegas, you can carry legally and lawfully.
Yeah.
Exactly what you were thinking.
We honor a lot of out-of-state permits, but if you get Nevada's honored in about 20 other states. So right now, it's varying a little bit because they're all, at July 1, almost all the states change their laws on the fiscal year, who they honor and who they don't. So if you've got your list from last year of what states honor your permit, you need to check and update that. We have a list here that is relatively accurate, we hope. Or you can go to handgunlaw.us on the internet, handgunlaw.us, and they will give you state by state who honors what and so forth and so on. We're going to talk about that in another story here in a little bit. This is a case I've been waiting to talk about. We had some debate about it in the store today when I pulled it up. I ran it by a couple people and they went, wow, you know. Lots of education here. This was reported on the 9th of this month, a few days ago, in the foxatlanta.com, because it's reporting the results of the trial of a shooting that took place in June 2012. If you think it'll be over a week later,
It's
You're
not
wrong.
like television where in 90
Right.
minutes they wrap it up.
this is really an awful case. It's been 3 years since an individual was shot by a homeowner. In June 2012, the homeowner was arrested and charged with multiple felonies after he and another man got in an argument that turned violent in the accused man's home, which is in Cartersville, Georgia. I'm glad the trial's over, he said. I didn't go to the closings. I didn't want to go to the verdict. I've actually gone on with my life. I'm glad to be alive. This is the victim talking, the guy that was shot. On Wednesday, Bartow County jury found him not guilty on all charges related to the shooting. That's the homeowner. The defense attorney said our sole defense the entire trial was the defense of justification. That was that under the circumstances, our client, the homeowner, was entitled to use deadly force to protect himself and his son from an intruder. It's not your general intruder. In 2012, at the time, the victim of the shooting, the guy who came over to this guy's house, this is hard to understand without names, and I never put names on these, protect the innocent and so forth, but I'm not interested in what the guy's name was that went to jail or didn't. I'm interested in what happened and why he did or did not go to jail. This guy has a 15-year-old daughter. The intruder has a 15-year-old daughter. She came home, hopped up on drugs, woozy, throwing up. She said she got some drugs from a 17-year-old kid at her school who is the son of the defendant in this case. He, the dad of the 15-year-old, went over to the house where the 17-year-old kid lives, knocked on the door, told the father who answered the door that his son had given his 15-year-old daughter drugs, got her hopped up. We can imagine why a 17-year-old would give a 15-year-old girl drugs. The dad of the 17-year-old said, no, that's not true. My son doesn't do drugs, doesn't sell drugs, doesn't give them away. Know nothing about it, as if we all really know what our 17-year-old son is doing all the time. But he felt he did, as all parents do. So they got into what started as a civil discussion between the two dads. The 17-year-old boy who lives in the house is there, but he never came out during this confrontation. We have the father of the 15-year-old who was invited into the house to discuss the situation. They get into a fist fight. At some point, the resident of that house, the father of the 17-year-old, feels that he is going to lose the fight or he's going to get beat up. And if this guy who really came over to, I would suspect, give his 17-year-old son an ass whooping, if not worse, the father of the 17-year-old eventually in the fight gets a gun out, fires at the 15-year-old girl's father. He wasn't killed. He stumbles out after he was shot twice. The police came, they sorted this all out and arrested the homeowner. The 17-year-old's father was arrested and charged with attempted murder and a whole bunch of other crimes. His attorney liked the verdict. He said it sent a message to all people in Georgia that if you use your firearm for protection of your family or home, juries are going to be sympathetic to that argument, because the jury, after this 3 years, let him off. They said that the shooting was justifiable. The prosecutor was arguing that we have two adult males, roughly the same size, shape, physical condition, that it was only a fist fight. The defense is arguing, yeah, but if you lost the fist fight, this guy is probably going to beat his 17-year-old son to death. Any of you out there have 15-year-old daughters and a 17-year-old playmate gets her drugged up, I suspect you would go over to the guy's house too and tune him up. That's what was going to happen here. So the father was shooting to defend his son and himself from a beating. The jury also sympathized a great deal with the father of the girl, because they all understand why that happened. And as I talk to people about this case today, all of my instructors here agreed that the guy was within bounds legally to shoot in self-defense because of his defense of his son and or himself. And they also all agreed that if they were the father of the 15-year-old girl, they'd have gone over and done the same damn thing. You know, there's no moral good side to this shooting. The father who was shot has recovered. He has said at this point he's fine with it. He understands why the guy did that. He's not mad at him anymore after a couple of years, even though he had a little bit of permanent injury from a couple of bullet holes. Not bedridden or anything, but he's all right and can work and solve it. That's a tough case. And you look at that with a jury and you go, well, the letter of the law,
right?
He's the aggressor. He came over to the guy's house. The defense says, wait a minute, but the guy let him in. He didn't break into the house. The guy invited him in. And then it got into a fight over whose kid was doing what to whose kid.
Cases like this tend to hang on what the state's law says about defense of others, defense of self. In Nevada, obviously, we have a little heightened perception in the home that says that if you are a victim of an attack in your home, the presumption is that you feared for your life or your safety. Georgia may have a similar statute that says at the point where it became a physical confrontation, and that's really all that this comes down to. Typically, we, as a defense attorney, we hope to see things like a disparity of force, the other person's armed, disparity of numbers. If this had been a very large, strong attacker versus a very weak, frail homeowner, the 17-year-old's father, perhaps it would have been different. If it had been the 17-year-old, because of his age, it might have been different. But because they were similarly situated, about the same size, and it was just a fist fight. Apparently, the 15-year-old's father didn't bring any weapons with him and was unarmed at the time of the shooting. But ultimately, a self-defense claim comes down to whether or not you feel that your life is in danger or substantial permanent bodily injury is likely to result. At that point, in the state of Nevada, in your own state, consult your own attorneys about state law. But most states have a similar principle that at that point you're entitled to use deadly force to defend yourself, which is what happened here.
Yeah.
The downside is if the police or a prosecutor don't see it the way you saw it, you're going to have to prove to 12 people that that's what you felt based upon the situation. And this attorney did a great job. These would be hard facts because, kind of like your instructors, the jury had to be sitting there thinking, well, this is a borderline case.
Yeah, I'd have done the same thing if I was him.
Exactly. So
whichever side you're on,
right,
you'd have done the same thing. Nobody's faulting the dad of the 15-year-old, and nobody's really faulting the dad of the 17-year-old. It's kind of mutual combat, and he's charged with a felony that's going to be 25 years.
It would have been a whole lot better if the 17-year-old's father at the door had said, you know what, we're not going to have this conversation and shut the door, take us to court if you want to make that claim, talk to my lawyer. Because
they've been in court for 3 years, of course, waiting for this thing to go to trial. And that's one of the reasons it didn't go to trial was in 3 years. The cases will take a long time. You're looking at least a year wherever you go for trial.
Yeah.
This went so long basically because the prosecutors are trying to figure out how they want to present this case, because that's a lot of people looked at it the same way I did. If I was the 15-year-old's father, I'd have done the same damn thing and been legally wrong, but I'd have done that.
Right.
You know, you're going to go over and tune this kid up. So cases that go to trial are never simple.
But it's never the black and white cases that go to trial. If this was absolutely justified, guy never would have been charged.
Yeah.
If he'd been absolutely wrong, he would have taken a deal.
Yeah.
So it's always the borderline cases that go in front of a jury.
if you like that one, here we go again. And we're going to run long, but we already told you that. We started 15 minutes late. So whenever. This is cool. I on a blog where I talked about this case, I found another very nationally known blogger that looked at the same case and made some comments on it. I didn't see his comments until I'd done my comments, and it was interesting. We agreed totally. He just used college language, and I said the guy was really absolutely just stupid. I'm not as highbrow as he, but anyway. This is a local resident who fired a shotgun during an argument. I'm not going to try and read it actually because I'm really familiar with it. Been over this like 18 times today. We have an argument between three men who arrived at somebody's house in two cars. They get out of the cars and they start to have a confrontation with the homeowner who had come out on the lawn. He's on the lawn. The three of them are standing in the street, and they're arguing about something. What they're arguing about is not important to what happened in this case, and it didn't actually explain that in the case why they didn't like each other, but the three guys are yelling at him, and he's yelling back. At some point during the confrontation, at least two of the three individuals standing in the street pulled out small knives, but knives nonetheless, and waved them at the homeowner as they're saying, we're going to do this and we're going to do that and so forth. The homeowner standing on the lawn goes back in the house, gets his 12-gauge shotgun that he keeps loaded for home defense with double-aught buck. He comes back out on the lawn. The three guys are still standing in the street. There's some more yelling. The guy points the shotgun, tells them, I'm going to shoot you if you don't leave me alone. And they didn't really say okay, but they got in their two vehicles and drove away. Almost. They drove about a football field away. The homeowner raises the shotgun and in his description fired around over the top of the car that was the nearest to him that was driving away at several feet over it so as to warn them to never come back again. He fired his, as they're leaving, warning shot. There's obviously a problem with that. They had knives and so forth, but who cares? They're driving away. And who cares what they're arguing about? They're now driving away. The shot goes over the car and hits two pellets of the double-aught buckshot, hit a guy standing on his lawn, a measured distance by the crime lab later of 341 feet from where the shooter was standing, hit the guy once in the head and once in the chest. He is going to survive. He is critically wounded, but will survive. We've talked to you about firing warning shots, why you shouldn't. We've talked to you about why you shouldn't fire at anybody fleeing from you, unless it's Charles Manson with your daughter under his arm. No reason to fire at the fleeing vehicle, and he didn't fire his warning shot straight up in the air, so if the bullet came down, it would hit him. He fired it at an angle that he said it was 8 or 10 feet above the Ford Bronco or something they were driving, an Explorer they were driving. So it was at an upward trajectory. It came down 341 feet from where he was standing and hit this guy in the head and torso. All bad, all day long. A lot of people don't, a lot of people don't realize,
and I've had people say this, well, it's just buckshot. Well, it's just 9 .32 caliber projectiles that'll travel 100 yards or more.
It's the same power level, and each pellet is a 32 auto.
32,
So-
exactly. So it's not just anything, and warning shots are a horrible, horrible idea, especially when they're fired in a negligent manner. This guy's going to face a bevy of penalties for his actions, and he's probably going to wind up losing this case.
He's in Greene County Jail in lieu of a $250,000 bail. If convicted, he gets 10 to 30 years in prison for first-degree assaults, or if it's sentenced up to 7 years for second-degree assault, and 3 years more for each armed criminal action. There's a lot of little charges in here because he endangered a whole lot of people.
And here's what his attorney has to tell him when they start talking about whether this is a good case or a bad case, because he's going to be telling his attorney, look, I was completely and totally justified. I had to do this. They'd come back and hurt me and my family. What you have to understand at that point is that the attorney should say, look, everybody on your jury lives on a block. And every last one of them, the only thing going through their mind in the whole case is, if we let this guy off and he moves on to my block, am I the next guy that takes a round when he fires another warning shot? They're not going to scare somebody off. So
they were already off. It was to scare them so they didn't come back, as if
they would
technically they would know buckshot went over the top of their vehicle they're driving. They probably didn't even know the dang shot was fired.
Probably didn't until they found out later on.
Well, the one who really knows is this guy's wife. She was standing next to him when he got hit, and got the paramedics there. And there's a whole story about screaming and all that stuff. She's obviously concerned about her husband dying and so forth, because they're so far away, they could see the house where the shot came from. They didn't even hear it. Now, this guy's just standing there, and all of a sudden, buckshot, whack, whack.
Now, that said, Bob, I'm sure some of the viewers and the listeners out there are asking themselves, but was he wrong when he walked out on the porch with the shotgun? They had knives, little knives, but was he wrong at that point from a trainer's standpoint?
From a trainer's standpoint, he's wrong only that he should have stayed in the house and called the police. Is it reasonable to pull a shotgun on somebody who's threatening you with a knife? Yes. Is it smart? No. If they're still standing in the street, you can go and lock the door, go 911, you know.
And the legal answer is identical to that. Go in the house, lock the door. It's a verbal altercation. Now, if they start kicking in your door, whole different situation. They never actually came on this guy's property.
But they never came on the property. They were in the street the whole time, as if they knew that there's a imaginary line there that says, we'll stay back from here.
I suspect we're going to find out a lot more about their relationship as this case winds its way through the courts.
They knew each other, obviously, but we don't know what the fight was over. And, but, I'm reading this, and I had people ask me, well, what was the fight over? I said, what does it matter?
Yeah.
They're arguing about a football bet. They're arguing who the Eagles should draft. They're arguing about ill-gotten gains from drug sales, money laundering, whatever they're arguing about. It doesn't matter. The point of the story is he fires at them when they're
after the
341 feet away.
They're gone. He did not need to fire that shot. He should have stayed in the house and called the police. Learn from this guy's error, because he's going to pay for it for a long time.
Hey, engineer, show me what button to push.
I've got the note right here.
Oh, okay. You're okay. Because our engineer has to leave now.
We're on autopilot. This is going to go downhill quickly.
This is going to really good. We got about 20 minutes to get through this, so we're making up for the missing part of the show. When we edit this for the YouTube replay, it's on YouTube now, but we're going to edit it and cut up all that junk in the front, so you might save that if you want to see how shows really shouldn't be run. Anyway. A note on National Shooting Sports. June, this last month, was the highest June on record in the 17-year-old system of the NICS background check system. 10% more guns were sold than in the previous record, which was June 2014. More guns, less crime. Crime is down if you've read all the real stats, not the crap coming out of politicians.
Well, and I'm sure the people at the, I believe it was the New York Times or one of the big newspapers, if it's not the New York Times, I apologize, but one of the big newspapers recently ran an article by a researcher who said gun ownership is actually going down and gun sales are actually falling off because people are getting smart about guns. They're not reading the same statistics everybody else is.
They're not reading the FBI stats.
Or
They say the murder rate is up. They're not looking at the data from the Center for Disease Control, the FBI crime stats. Murder is way down. Gun sales are way up, and those things will continue to do that until the administration takes all our guns away, and then only the bad guys will have guns, and away we go.
Anybody who's ever gotten into an argument on the internet has finally gotten to the point of asking, where is your statistical sources coming from? Don't accept what somebody says just because they say it, and maybe they're the smartest person you know.
Go to the
find out.
FBI crime stats, go to the Center for Disease Control, as left-wing as most of those guys are. The stats of who died from what year
The
are
numbers
real, and there's world stats for the same thing. We are not the most violent country in the world for murder rates and so forth. We're way down the list from lots of them. They keep saying of all the developed countries, we have the highest murder rate. And then, well, they don't consider Pakistan to be developed, and they have nuclear weapons, but they're not developed. And whoever wants to make that statement, Anyway, Kansas City this week, July 1, became the 5th or 6th state to go to constitutional carry, meaning you don't need a permit to carry a handgun concealed in Kansas as of now. When I wrote this, it said the 6th state, and then after going through all the actual stats from here and there, I discovered they're only the 5th state, maybe the 6th state, depending on a couple of states that aren't. One is not sure if they're constitutional carry or not.
Right.
Just to run you through the real quick stats, if you want to go where you can go and carry your gun without a permit, you can carry your gun without a permit in Alaska, Vermont, Wyoming, and Arizona, and now Kansas. Now, Arkansas is listed on the gun blogs as a constitutional carry state. The state of Arkansas, their attorney general and their state police say they are not a constitutional carry state. There's argument in what the bill says, how it was written, that it really isn't constitutional carry because you have to have some kind of permit or training or something.
Right.
So you can't, even though some of the blocks say you can carry a gun in Arkansas, you can't as a constitutional carry state. Montana and Idaho are sometimes listed. Both of those states are constitutional carry, except they allow cities and towns to restrict carrying concealed firearms in their jurisdiction. So they're only constitutional carry in the boonies.
Basically outside of a
Those two
town
states.
where you're hiking or camping, where you could use it reasonably to defend against animals.
Montana and Wyoming do that. Wyoming is listed on everybody's list as a constitutional carry state. Guess what? Their law says it allows non-permit concealed carry for residents only.
I found that out this year when I went up to
Yes.
Wyoming. I was checking to make sure I was still legal. I always, before I travel every year, I pull up the list to make sure I'm not blowing through anybody's laws that have changed. And I always go through Wyoming and into Wyoming, and I was under the impression it was a constitutional carry
It says
state
that
too.
in every gun blog you read.
Right.
And
then,
it's not.
Yeah.
It's only for them, not
then I
for
found
us.
out you got to be a citizen with a Wyoming ID or driver's license, but they do honor a whole lot of CCW.
They honor a whole lot of other states,
Right.
but if you don't have a permit
Don't do
and
it.
you don't live in Wyoming, you cannot carry there and conceal. New Hampshire and New Mexico are not constitutional carry states, but both of them allow you to carry a concealed handgun unloaded and a loaded magazine on your person at the same time.
Yeah, as I understand it, their statutes seem to say that to be a firearm, it must be loaded.
Correct.
So it's just a lump of iron if it can't go bang until you put it together. And the theory
So-
is it's going to be in the open when you put it together.
What people there do, and people passing through do, of course, they're in their cars passing through, they
Right.
would do that anyway. They carry an empty gun and they carry a magazine
Magazine.
loaded in their other pocket, and all you got to do is put it together. So they're not constitutional carry either, but really close. It just takes a little bit longer to draw. 21 other states this past legislative session introduced constitutional carry, but it failed to be enacted. 21 states had it on in the legislature, and it failed in the 21, including Nevada. We didn't get ours through here either. But you can bet there'll be more.
It'll come back. Here's what's happening, at least in Nevada, and I presume most of these states. There's a lot of gun laws being brought up every year. We had a dozen or more this year, something like that, Bob. And we got several important ones through, and the culling process just took this one out. To get the votes for the others, they didn't have the votes for these. And I'm interested to know if any of our viewers who are in these constitutional carry states want to go to the website and leave a comment. Let us know how it works in your state.
Please, if what I just read, if that you looked at that and you're a lawyer in Wyoming or head of a gun rights group or something,
Or Arkansas.
or wherever, and knows different than the information I just gave out, please send me an email and let me know. Whoops, we lost part of my
Comes
son
back
here.
this way.
Bob@firedupmail.com. And if you have a question or comment about the show, a question we can use on the air about something I missed, please feel free. Between Mike Giles and I, we know everything there is to know about guns and gun laws, but sometimes he's wrong and sometimes I'm wrong and the wrong guy talks. So if we make an error that you think we made an error, we'd be happy to discuss that with you by email or whatever and see if we can clear it out and answer your questions. The news part at firearmspolicy.org has come up with a new California law that was just amended to incorporate a new exemption to their Gun-Free School Zone Act for reserve peace officers and ammunition. Right now, reserve peace officers can carry on school grounds, doesn't violate the law, and in some cases, ammunition is allowed on school property by private parties and by reserve police officers. They're allowed to carry. Well, they cleared that up because a lot of people that have licensed concealed carry and a lot of police reserves think they're well trained, but not really. The police reserves can still carry, but what changed in the law is reserve officers were allowed to carry on school property in California. And in some schools, they could allow trained civilian CCW holders or National Guard officers or whatever to carry on school property. And that went away. Now you have to be an actual cop or a reserve cop. You can't be a retired cop. You can't be a trained civilian of some sort to carry on school property. So they're just tightening down. There's a couple of others coming up here that they're doing the same thing. AMOLAN reported this week on the 8th, George Pataki, the Republican presidential candidate and former New York governor, has an interesting view of gun laws. In a recent interview, when asked about gun control, he said, it is illegal to bring a gun across state lines, yet it happens all the time. I don't understand why the federal government is not doing far more to prevent that.
Are there lawyers in New York that advise this guy?
I think he's a lawyer, isn't he?
I think he is.
Anyway, the fact is the opposite is actually true. The federal provision of the Firearms Owner Protection Act protects you if you're transporting firearms interstate from one state to another from local restrictions that would otherwise prohibit it back. And there's some restrictions. The gun needs to be unloaded and locked away from the ammunition and so forth. And a lot of the states have that restriction for guns and cars anyway. But it is specifically legal to carry a gun through another state. It is not a federal crime as presidential candidate. Wow. Pataki, thanks. I don't think we need to elect him if we own a gun.
Well,
I don't know what his views are on guns, but I know that he obviously isn't paying attention, or whoever feeds him the information isn't paying attention.
Like a lot of gun grabbing states, the people of New York, Chicago has this theory, New Jersey has this theory, and they've had it for years, that it's not them that's the problem with their laws. It's the fact that people bring guns into their state. And so they try to convince people it's illegal to take a firearm across state lines. Now, If it's an illegal firearm in that state, perhaps the state law, the minute you cross the state line, you're subject to
Right,
their
if
law.
it's an assault weapon or a
Right,
high-capacity magazine or
or
whatever.
something. But
Yeah.
but just to transport firearms across the state line, and
Yeah,
maybe he
said it's
misspoke.
illegal, period.
And it's not certainly under federal law. One thing to remember with FOPA, the Firearms Owners Protection Act, if you're traveling, if you deviate from if you're going through a bad state, and if you want to go look up the show where we talked about the young man who stopped in New Jersey to sleep while he was traveling home, he lawfully owned firearms.
And he got to stay in New Jersey for another 3
years
yes.
before he was let out. You can't deviate. So either find a way to not go through known firearms hostile areas. There's 38 states still in the country in the United States, so stay in those. But if you do have to pass through one, find the shortest route, stay on the biggest roads possible, don't deviate, and get out of their jurisdiction as fast as possible.
Don't pull off. Yeah. There's a note on this story I was talking about with Governor Pataki that said travelers should be aware that some state and local governments, and this is true, treat this federal provision as an affirmative defense, meaning if you're carrying a gun across the state line, even on the state highway, they arrest you, and then you must go to court and your lawyer present the federal law as an affirmative defense to have been violated their state law. It means you're going to win the case. It means you're going to go to jail and spend a couple days there and have to hire a local lawyer to get a judge to dismiss the charge. They do that just so you'll be discouraged from bringing a gun through their state in the car.
Well, and that's why it's so important to make sure you're absolutely in line with what the law says.
Magazine capacity, no hollow point bullets if you're going to certain states. They outlaw hollow points, called cop killer bullets generally.
New Jersey's the big one there.
Yeah,
so
and anyway, if you go to handgunlaw.us or call the Attorney General's office in the state you're going through and ask them. I have a Beretta 92. It holds 10 shots. One of the magazines is the follower's broken. There's 11 go in that one. Don't carry that one to California. It's one round is jail in a lot of these cases. So check the law before you travel. There was all sorts of stuff all over the news media about the background check system now, since they discovered that the murderer in Charleston, South Carolina, that killed those 9 people in a church, disgusting crime. He bought his gun 8 days after he turned 21 years old by going into a local gun shop in Columbia, West Columbia, South Carolina, and passing the background check. He should have failed the background check. It was dropped somewhere in the system at the FBI. They have apologized for it now. I can't imagine how the lady who personally did this background check missed it. She had suspicions about him. It went back to the dealer as a delayed response.
Right.
When we call somebody into Brady, we get an approval, transfer the gun. We get no, period, don't transfer the gun. And we occasionally get in between, we get delayed. That allows 72 hours. There's something in the background, but they need to check it further. In this case, there was a drug arrest. She didn't see the disposition of the drug arrest right away, that he was convicted or not. Just the arrest doesn't stop him from buying a gun. But as it turned out, he had copped a plea to the drug arrest. It was on a different sheet of paper. He had been convicted of a drug offense. And if the case hadn't closed yet, he was still under indictment for a drug offense, which means you can't buy any more guns at that time. If you're under indictment, you're not allowed to increase the number of guns you own. You don't have to turn in the ones you already own at the moment, unless it's domestic violence. We're going to have a 4-hour show on gun launcher. Anyway, the lady, they explained, saw the arrest. There was another sheet of paper with it that didn't show a disposition, so she put it as a delay. She didn't realize in the paper, it said he had told the judge that he was guilty of possessing the drugs. Therefore, even though he hadn't gone to court and pled guilty, he had told him he's guilty.
Right. Well,
He was prohibited. It's a fuzzy area of the law, but the FBI should have caught it. And I can't imagine what the lady is going through that missed that. I mean,
well,
she's
she's
gotta
obviously got to be torn up. And the simple answer is a lot of gun shops refuse. If the FBI doesn't come back within 72 hours, then the firearm can be transferred at the discretion of the shop. Now, I know a lot of shops refuse to transfer the firearm if the FBI never gets back to them. They just say, sorry, we're not going to do it.
Yeah, we get in that mind. We want the FBI to say, yeah, this guy is okay to receive a firearm. And when they say, we don't know, they're bypassing the whole Brady system. They're coming back and saying, it's up to you.
Right.
Just like the old days, where it was up to us. And then we worry about the guy doing something illegal and we sold him the gun and that's the good part about Brady is they pick off the obvious ones. Some stores do not transfer guns. If you come back delayed, they just give you the money back. Walmart is the big chain
ones,
that does
big chains.
that. The stores here are split about 50-50, the smaller shops. And we kind of do that on a case-by-case basis here. But in general, yeah, if you come back delayed, you need to find out why,
right,
and get it fixed. Most of them would later be approved for transfer. Most of the late ones are approved. Currently, nationally, they're stopping about 3% of the sales are either delayed or denied. At the end of the day, when they look up all the records and their lawyer calls them and this and the other thing, a little less than 1% are actually not transferred.
People who should not be allowed to have
because they're
firearms.
really not legally allowed to have a gun. And I even hate to use the term shouldn't have a firearm because we had a guy in here some years ago, he's 72 years old, absolutely true story. He came back denied. He said, it can't be, I never done anything. Well, when I was in college, I got in trouble. I wrote a bad check for $200. That was a felony when he was in college. 52 years before he tried to buy this gun, he wrote a bad check for $200, was charged with a felony, pled guilty, paid the restitution. He's a felon. He can't have a gun. So I will never argue that Brady prevents bad guys from having guns. It prevents good guys from having guns a lot.
Yeah.
And until the system gets better and separates guys like that did a kid's prank. Which of you didn't write a bad check when you were in college or have one bounce? And, I did. It wasn't for $200. I had $5 in the account. But we're catching, all laws are double-edged and they all catch somebody who doesn't deserve to be caught. And they all punish somebody who doesn't deserve to be punished. And gun laws are one of those. If you're a prohibited person, don't try and buy a gun.
Right.
If they catch you, you fail a Brady, nothing will happen. But it's in their computer that you failed. If you go to a different shop a week or a year later, try to buy another gun, they're going to arrest you. You are now aware that you can't buy a gun. Mm-hmm. Most of the people that are turned down are fugitives,
right,
traffic tickets from out of state.
Stuff. And that happens all the time. Hey, I don't know what's going on. And if you're turned down to purchase a firearm and you don't think there's legitimately, you really were never arrested. And I get this once a week, I get a call like this.
Right.
I tell them to come in. We have to dig through the records. Every now and then what we'll find is, just like the guy, you pled 25 years ago to this, and it's domestic violence. I'm going to tell you the truth. If you have a conviction for domestic violence under the Violence Against Women Act, you're done owning firearms federally, and most states have a state analogy to that. We just passed that in Nevada. But go hire an attorney to look into it, because you may have been wrongfully, somebody could have stolen your identity. It could be a glitch in the system, and that's the 2% of the 3% that finally get put
Or
through.
it's
you
wrong.
know?
If your
It's just
last
wrong.
name is Smith,
Yeah.
you know, Brown or Jones or whatever, you know.
If you filled out a 4473 recently, there's a line on it that says Social Security number, and then in little letters it says, this is not mandatory, but it's helpful. It's helpful. It's very helpful because the name thing gets a lot of people. And I'm going to have to walk back something I said last week, Bob. We were talking about this very case, and I said he may not have actually broken a law till he walked through the door of the church where it was illegal for him to have a firearm. Now it's very clear because more news has come out.
Yeah.
He not only was under indictment, and there's a line on the 4473 that says,
For
I
that,
am not
yeah.
or I am under indictment. They'll deny it if you admit it. Or I'm an unlawfully addicted
Addicted to
to
drugs.
drugs.
Yeah.
And he had to have lied on the 4473 to those two questions for them to even make the phone call, right? If you go through the form and somebody's checked one of those boxes, even if they say, ooh, I checked the wrong box, you can't let them recheck the box, can you?
We can accept the one that says I'm a prohibited
I'm a
person.
prohibited person,
Yeah.
right?
So if you check one of those, that's it. He's
so
done.
he would have been done. So he was committing crimes well before he committed the heinous crime of shooting those innocent folks.
The metropolis of Seattle, which we all know and love as being a very pro-gun area, has a new proposal from the city council president. The gun violence prevention programs to be funded by proposing a tax sold on every firearm and a tax on every round of ammunition made in the city in order to fund the gun violence prevention programs. It doesn't say what programs they are going to fund, but the tax would be $25 on each firearm that's built in Seattle and 5 cents on each round of ammunition. The statute is not clear. The proposal is not clear because it's not finished yet. If making ammunition is home reloaders, then you now have to pay a 5 cent tax. But anyway, that will add to the regular state and local retail taxes. They're already 9.6. So you'll have more. Seattle City Council is to vote on this on July 15. Not stopping with just a tax on making guns, selling guns, or making ammunition. They're also considering a stolen firearms ordinance requiring owners to report a firearm lost or stolen within 24 hours or be subject to a $500 fine. It does not say within 24 hours of discovery of the firearm being gone. It says within 24 hours. So if you don't check the gun under your mattress every day,
or if you're on vacation, you come back and the safe was cut open.
It's been gone for more than 24 hours, you are subject to a $500 fine for not reporting it, or not reporting yourself for not reporting it. Those two statutes, by the way, I just read, the $25 tax on firearm sales and the fine for not knowing your gun was stolen, are both in violation of Washington state preemption statute. They have one just like we do in Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
It says only the state government can make gun laws now.
Well, they're going to
So
say this isn't
these
a
are
gun
both.
law, it's a tax law. And so since the tax law, it falls outside of the preemption, which is an argument that's been made elsewhere. But I suspect no one on the Seattle City Council is a small business owner. Because what this is going to do is simply drive gun shops outside of the jurisdiction. They'll be like Chicago. There won't be a single firearm shop within the tax
They'll have
circle.
to drive down to Tacoma or
Right.
whatever to buy a gun. And yeah, it'll kill the gun shops there because now every gun adds $25.
And so their tax base will go down overall.
New York Democrat Governor Andrew Cuomo and state lawmakers have agreed to change part of the New York SAFE Act in relation to ammunition sales. Right now, they've got a line in there that when you buy ammunition, there's reporting with your thumbprint or whatever, like they have in California. But they're going to suspend that until the background check system that they want to use for buying ammunition is up to date. It doesn't exist in most areas. The dealers cannot check the guy to see if he's legal to buy ammunition or not, because there's no records of that. So this was listed by one of the gun websites in upstate New York as a victory for gun owners, that there are no background checks on ammo until they get the system fixed. It's not winning. It's
the poor people in New York are taking their wins where they can get them. Anytime they can get a change in the Safe Act. You remember when the court said that 7 rounds versus 10 rounds was random and ambiguous, and so they struck down the 7-round limit in the Safe Act. They were all jumping up and down, but the Safe Act itself still prevents them from owning the firearm.
It still ruined everybody's life.
Yeah.
Couple notes: upcoming gun shows: Western Trails Gun Show at Santa Fe Station next weekend, the 18th and 19th of July. We will be there. Hopefully, one of our lawyers will be there to answer your questions directly. There was listed in the paper last week a gun show at the Sports Center, July 25 and 26. That show has been canceled. There is not a gun show the week after. July 25 and 26, the Las Vegas Gun Show was canceled. After that, in August 1st and 2nd, we have one in Henderson, the Convention Center. Crossroads is coming in August 29th, Rocky Mountain, September 5 and 6, etc. These are all on our website, firedupwithboberwin.com. We list the gun shows that are coming up in the next 6-7 months, so you can plan your day. If you didn't notice, we've discontinued our Thursday Crack of Dawn show on Pursuit, and this show is replacing it when we get it on the air. We're having a few glitches. We have a phone for the office here if you want to call. For what we use that for is for business for Fired Up. If you want to hire or have one of our attorneys or myself or somebody come be a guest speaker for your group, or suggest some, we prefer emails to the address there. If you want to contact us for other reasons, you can use that number, 702-333-0033. Thanks for listening on the radio, except for tonight, and watching on YouTube. We've got another story we were going to run tonight, but it is now 7:30. We are a half hour over. So we're going to get this one next week. I appreciate we've had lots of comments come in on that email to firedupwithbob.com that have been very helpful. And hopefully we'll have the technical difficulty glitched out of this by next time we're around.
Just remember, we're going to be on YouTube, and you can watch us. If the radio station doesn't reach you, get us on YouTube.
Yeah, we are on YouTube and your iPads and iPhones and so forth. YouTube, Fired Up with Bob Irwin, and you will get all of our old shows there too, going back quite a ways. I think they're almost, not quite all of them on there. We've still got a few that are missing in the holes here and there. So you can watch these anytime. There was a poster behind us here, if you didn't notice. One of our range masters, Michaela, is a professional boxer, and she is fighting in Saturday, July 25th, in a fight in Phoenix.
Down
there. I think it's going to be on television, actually. She's real cute. She's a range master here. She'll take you in with a machine gun, and if you handle a gun poorly, she'll get you. Thank you for watching and listening, and we will be back next week, same time, on at 6 o'clock on Saturday night. And my fill-in now engineer, Mike Giles, engineer, will turn us off the air. So thank you for looking in. Sorry for all the trouble. We'll be back. And I'll stand here and grin at you until he clicks the right button.